Hey there, adventurers. I'm Norwolf. Welcome to my tabletop role-playing realm, where I plan to highlight some of the classic RPGs as well as some that are more current. There'll be walkthroughs, example plays, and some solo sessions. This is the third video in which I'm covering the Powers and Perils role-playing game from Avalon Hill Game Company that was published back in 1983. Today I'll go through some simple melee combat between Raffin, that human warrior character that I created in the last two videos, and a sample foe or two. I'll be covering off the basics of combat and then go through some of the combat experience and skill gains afterwards. In upcoming videos, I will be covering off creating a magic using character and probably some additional combat samples that include both melee and spell casting. But let's dive into this. So last time I was filling out this Excel spreadsheet that I created many years back. I took from the first video. I took the stats and everything and copied them into this. It does a lot of the calculations and whatnot for me, so I makes life a little bit easier, anyways. You'll see that this is pretty close to the original character sheet. Other than the original character sheet has equipment at the bottom, and then on the second page it has an education record for your skills and spell record for your spells if you're a spellcaster, plus some other miscellaneous information. I've broken that into this front tab, a back that has items or inventory and education record, although I tend not to use the education record. I find that I just prefer to have the skills listed on a separate page, as I've done here. And similarly for the spells, once I do the spellcaster, I'll show that off as well. But I find it just a little more handy to have the information here and a little neater for myself anyways. So one of the things that Avalon Hill published in 1984 was something called the Book of Tables. It was another small box set that included a summary or a booklet that consolidated a lot of the tables from the core rules. And that box also included 3 different Game Master screens, one for combat, one for magic, and one for encounters. So that was pretty handy. And they also included a adventure record sheet, which you'll see here. And what I've done in my spreadsheet is taken some of the armor and combat and missile weapon information and put it at the bottom of the front page. So I've kind of consolidated the more useful stuff into the first page here for your typical melee character anyways. But so what I'm going to do here is finish off filling in this bottom half. So the armor, weapons. If you remember, we outfitted this fellow with a metal helm, banded shield, banded ring mail, or banded ring. He has a bastard sword, a longbow, and a fighting dagger. So we'll get those put into that front page. And also of note is his skill. So he has a longbow skill of 5. He has a bastard sword skill of 6, both of which are at max currently. So they won't go up. They won't have an opportunity to go up again until he's increased his dex and agility, and his stamina and strength. And the other skill here is his fighting dagger, which is EL 0. So he may actually be able to get some points into that in this next combat. All right, let's go back to the front. So we're going to start with book 1. And let's get his armor filled in here. So he's got banded ring. He has a metal helm. And he has a banded shield. His EL and shield was 2. Actually, I didn't mention that. But again, his shield EL is 2. That's actually supposed to be 2. And it takes 18 expertise points to go up to his next level. So his next level is 3, so 3 times 6. Similar for the fighting dagger, is NEL times 5, so NEL 1 is going to be 5 expertise points for his dagger fighting skill to go up, or fighting dagger skill to go up. And for his weapons, we had Bastard Sword, we had fighting dagger, and we had longbow. Heal 5 in the longbow, heal 0 in the dagger, and 6 in the Bastard Sword. And then the longbow down here as well. And actually, the damage actually comes from the arrows, so let's put in arrow here. Right, so weapon strength bonus in the damage types. And the armor, actually that's all in. Go down to the equipment tables. And skills. There we go. Okay. Metal Helm has an armor value of +2. So the armor value of a helmet only comes into play for severe and deadly hits on the character. So the banded ringmail has an armor value of 2. So for a typical hit, he'll be deducting 2 from the damage. With a severe or deadly hit, he'll be deducting 4 from the damage. And of course, our banded shield has a armor value of 8. The shield works slightly differently for damage resistance. So it's the ED of the shield, which is the equivalent to its DR of the shield, and plus his EL. But we'll get into that in a future discussion. Now the DR. In Book 2, there's an optional rule for weapon and armor damage, or equipment damage. And that is in the red section here. Weapon fatigue, basically, if you do damage with your weapon that exceeds the fatigue value, the fatigue value of the weapon is reduced by 1. What I haven't done is actually put the fatigue values in for these weapons yet, so let's pop back to Book 1. The fighting dagger has a weapon strength bonus of 0 and a fatigue value of 6. So weapon strength bonus is 0 and fatigue value of 6. The Bastard Sword has a weapon strength bonus of +1 and a fatigue value of 12. And the arrows, in this case, and the bow, I guess. So we have a longbow. Longbow, there it is. And arrows. So you see the longbow has a weapon strength bonus of +1. The arrows are 0, so we have a +1 in here. And the fatigue value of an arrow is 6. Okay, so back to Book 2. Our armor. The banded ring has an armor value of 2, so it has a DR of 20. Again, as your character takes damage, your armor also takes damage. And eventually, every so often, you do have to actually repair your armor. The helm has an armor value of, or DR, or damage resistance of the armor value times 10, so that's going to be 20 as well. Basically, on a severe or deadly hit, if you take more than 20 points of damage, the helm is destroyed. Otherwise, it doesn't get damaged. And for shields, when you take a shield hit, that's where this DR plus EL comes in. So If your shield is hit for, in this guy's case, for 5 or less, the shield blocks the damage and the shield itself takes no damage. If it does more than 5 points of damage, then the shield is damaged by 1. We'll check that. It's reduced by 1 and the damage is blocked. And if the damage blocked is 50% or less, yeah, no damage. If there's an instant. Yeah, if the AV of the shield amount of damage that is blocked, if this value is exceeded, the shield is destroyed and any excess damage is taken by the user. Right. So if he takes 12 points of damage, for example, it destroys the shield and 2 points of damage go on to the character. That would have to be a fairly hefty creature that's doing a shield hit for that amount of damage, but I've definitely seen it happen. Right. That takes care of those. Now for the actual damage. Phase movement. Where's our combat tables? Spells. Up here, so we have ranges and range fractions, which will be handy right away here. Actually, let's do that right now, I guess. Okay, the longbow has so these are the range increments: point blank, short, medium, long, and extreme. And not all the weapons or all the ranged weapons have an extreme range capability. So the base range is 30 hexes, or 300 feet. Basically, each hex or square is 10 feet. And it can go up to, because it has extreme range or extended range, extreme range, it can go up to 60 squares. But if for every square or hex after 30, you have to add 1 to your percentile roll for your attack. So it does get pretty prohibitive, and you're already attacking on a combat line that's pretty bad. So, and with that base range of 30, you see down here, these are the range increments for the 30. So mark these in here. So we have an EL5 on the bow. The point blank range is 0 to 3 hexes, and it puts us on the plus 12 line. So we'll put a plus 12 and 0 to 3 hexes. Blank is 4 to 7 hexes, and it puts us on the plus 8 line. We'll put a plus 8 and 4 to 7. Our medium range is 8 to 15 hexes, and it puts us on the 0 line. We have 0 and 8 to 15. And our long range, of course, it puts us on the minus 10 line. And gives us a range of 16 to 30. And yes, for the extreme range. We just know that the extreme is double the longest range here, 30. So, right, let's put in the damage values. And I was talking about the line you attack on. So for longbow, if you're firing at point blank range, you're firing on the plus 12 line here. Oops. So you have roughly a 75% chance of hitting in general at that point. You're at long range, you're on the minus 10 line with the longbow, and you've got a 30% chance of hitting. And for every hex past the 30, you're adding 1 to your roll. So if you're firing at something that's 60 hexes away, you've got plus 30 to your roll, so you hopefully have some good minuses to be able to still hit whatever you're aiming at. Now for damage. So your damage classes, we have deadly, severe, and hits or shield hits. Let's start with the hit. It's your a d6 plus your stamina bonus plus your weapon strength bonus. So our fellow's strength bonus plus weapon strength bonus. So our strength bonus is +2. So we've got, this will be a +3. The fighting dagger is going to be no weapon strength bonus, so just +2. And our arrow is going to be strength bonus of +2, and the weapon strength bonus 1, so 3 as well. Okay, and now for the severe hits, we have a d10 plus strength bonus plus weapon strength bonus plus half the EL or expertise level rounded up. So we're going to have half the EL, 3, 4 for the weapon strength bonus, and 6 total for the strength bonus. So 6 here. With our knife, no EL, no weapon strength bonus, so it's just going to be the +2. And for the longbow, it's going to be strength bonus 2 plus our weapon strength bonus of 1, and half our EL rounded up is going to be 6. And now for deadly hits. For deadly hit is going to be 2d10 or 1d10 plus strength bonus d10, whichever is greater. And this guy's case, he's got a strength bonus +2, as I said, so it's going to be 3d10 plus the EL and weapon strength bonus. So EL 6 and weapon strength bonus is 7. Fighting dagger, no EL, no weapon strength bonus, so it's just going to be the +2. And for the longbow, the strength bonus isn't used for the die 10s. If it was a thrown weapon, then you'd it'd be strength bonus d10. So in this case, it's 2d10. Actually, a quick correction. For missile fire, the strength bonus is never added except for thrown weapons. So the severe damage here is only going to be the d10 plus the weapon strength bonus plus half the EL. So that's going to be 4, not 6. And for the regular hit, there's no strength bonus, so it's just the weapon strength bonus, so it's going to be just +1. Again, the strength bonus is only used for thrown weapons and not for crossbows, bows, slings, things where... Actually, I'm not sure about sling, but anyways, I guess we'll figure that out later. I have to go back and double check the rules on that. All right, so that finishes off this piece. So we're going to find a creature to fight, and I'm thinking something pretty straightforward like a wolf or a couple of wolves. So let's find the wolves in book 3. Book 3 is quite a handy book. It has rules for hunting. It talks about how the turns work, food point yield from hunting, sleeping, your waking chance, which I've got on the character sheet here is WC, which is the will plus empathy divided by 2 round up. So in this guy's case, 10 and 7, or 17 divided by 2 round up makes it a 9. And then that can be modified by loud noises and certain other things. It's up to the game master's discretion, I guess. And what else? Chance for what the chance of being ambushed is based on the terrain that you're in and your survival EL for that terrain or expertise level. Encounters, typical encounters will be d6 plus 10 hexes away. For our little simulated combat here, I'm just going to assume our foes are about 10 squares apart, and I'm using a square grid instead of hexes, but generally works fine for the most part. And I won't get into the upper world, lower world stuff. they have encounter tables which are quite extensive in this book, and they're based on the terrain, aerial, waterways, things like that, day and night, different percentages based on the time of day, different tables for day and night, quite a few different terrains. So forests, hills, mountains, ruins, ways, swamps, underground, cities, waterways, upworld, etc. And the creature list, the stats that they list for the creatures are pretty similar to the character stats. So if we look at Wolf here, they've got average hit points of 15, offensive combat value of 6, defensive combat value 5, natural weapon index of -2. So if they're fighting with their natural weapons, they modify their percentile roll by that natural weapon index. So in this case, the wolf subtracts 2 from his roll, which is good. If you look at the other creature here, the Asagi, they add 2 to the roll, so not quite as good. Strength, stamina, dex, and agility, and the various bonuses for those. The movement rate of 18, which gives him a phased movement rate of 5-4-5-4, compared to our character's movement rate of 11, which gives him a movement rate of 3-3-3-2. So the wolf is slightly faster. Natural armor value, so if they have a thick hide or something, they may have a natural armor value. In the case of the wolf, it's 0, so he's not subtracting anything from the damage he's receiving. Magic defense value of 8, which comes into play when spells are being cast at it. The number found, and often there will be, depending on how many are rolled or what's determined here, there could be young involved or layers and things like that. Energy level, which comes into play for poisons and some spell effects that will reduce energy level. Combat difficulty factor determines how difficult, I guess, the creature is, and affects the experience you gain at the end, and the partial expertise, or the expertise you gain in the various weapon or combat skills that were used in the combat. Contact level is more of a summoning function. Damage tolerance value is what negative values of hit points they can go to before dying. The healing chance, if they escape and have a few days to heal up before they come back at you. And an intellect level, which is representative of kind of the level of intellect of the creature that's involved. So the wolf, I think the intellect level 4 means something like occasional brilliance or something like that. It describes the intellect levels earlier in the book. So let's mark down some of the relevant stats for our wolves here. We've got, let's see, wolf. I'm going with 2 of them. So the hit points are going to be 15 and 15, and they have a DTV of -3. So good to note for when we take these down, or if we take them down. The OCV is 6, the DCV is 5, and the what else is useful here for this particular combat? DV is not going to come into play. Energy level is probably not going to come into play. The CDF is 2. And got the DTV. Natural weapon index is 0. Natural armor value is 0. And like I said, we've got 2. So I think that pretty much covers it. Oh, and his strength bonus is +1. I'm going to play when he hits us, because I'm sure he will. Right. So we've got this handy little road here. I'm going to position our mini at the back. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 squares apart. And we're going to assume these squares are just 10 feet for the sake of argument here. So we've got Raffin, our illustrious warrior, out doing some hunting. He's got bow in hand as he's looking for some prey for his evening meal. And he comes across a couple of wolves on the road. So let's go back to book 2 and see how this combat works out. So combat modifiers, things that affect your rolls. Weapon expertise can affect either your attack roll or you can use it to block a melee attack from your opponent, or reduce the chance of the melee attack from your opponent. Your shield expertise reduces the goes against the roll of your opponent. So in this guy's case, in Raffin's case here, he'll be adding supposed to be adding 2 because of his shield skill to their rolls. The weapon expertise can increase the damage. The shield expertise can help reduce the damage. The shield itself reduces damage but doesn't affect the roll being modified. The armor itself reduces the damage you take, similarly with the helm for severe and deadly hits. Weapon strength bonus increases your damage that you do. The natural weapon index modifies the creature's roll to attack. And then there can be various other situation tables. So with the 2 wolves fighting our fellow here, Raffin, they have -5 the rolls, so because there's more for Raffin to keep track of. And if he was unable to move, it'd be -20 to the roll, etc. Mounted combat, attacking from above. Defender is small. These guys had an OCV of less than 4, then it'd be harder to hit. Right. Let's get into back up to the combat table. Okay. So we'll pop down to the movement and combat phase sequencing. So in each phase of combat, there's four activities that happen. So first is mana allocation. So if you have a caster in the party, or a caster that you're attacking, they have an opportunity to allocate mana to prepare to cast their spells or spell. Next is missile fire, and then after missile fire comes magic effect. If the caster has gathered enough mana, they can cast their spell at this point. If they're casting a very powerful spell, they may not be able to actually gather enough mana in that first phase, or first several phases potentially. So they may spend the first couple of phases gathering mana before they can actually cast their spell. The magic system in this game is something that I particularly like, and looking forward to showing it off a bit in future videos. So, and then after the magic effect comes the movement and melee, where the order of attack is determined by either your weapon class, which really is the weapon length itself, or the creature's offensive combat value. So we'll get there in a second here. So Raffin, we're going to start with phase 1 here of the first round. Raffin has his bow out, and he decides to take a shot at these guys. I said they were 9 hexes away, which puts them at medium range, which makes him roll on the 0 combat line. We pop back up here to the combat table, and we're rolling on the 0 line. So he's modifying this roll with his EL and longbow, which is minus, so he's subtracting 5. And of course the wolves don't have shields or anything, so there's no other modifier there. So we'll just fire at the first wolf, and we get a 27 minus 5, so 22 on the 0 line gives us just a regular hit. And we're doing a d6 plus 1 damage. So let's see what we do. 5 points. That's not they don't have any natural armor, so it's our first wolf takes the full 5 points from his bow. And I'm just making a note of the bow, or the type of damage, or which weapon did the damage. Normally I'd have the characters that are playing keep track of what they've used and how much damage they've done with the various weapons they're using and things like that. So the next bit is the wolves are moving as well. So they are actually, so sorry, after the mana location, we did the missile fire, we get into the magic effect, and then we get into movement and melee. So the wolves move up. On phase 1, they're moving 5. And Raffin's going to be swapping weapons on this next round. So phase 2. No mana allocation, no missile fire, no magic effect. So we're into movement and melee. So Raffin's sheathed his sword, pulling out his fighting dagger, and the wolves get up to him and attack. Or sorry, he pulls out his bastard sword, and the wolves get up to him and attack. So the first wolf has an offensive combat value of 6. We know that Raffin's defensive combat value is 7. So Raffin has an OCV of 7 and DCV of 7. We'll note that for moving forward here. So what happens is you subtract the creature, the defensive combat value of who you're attacking from your offensive combat value. So in this case, the wolf, let's put the wolf on the -1 line. Wolf has a natural index of -2. It's not 0. -2. So the wolf is subtracting 2 from his roll, but Raffin is adding 2 to his roll because he has a shield skill of 2. So let's go back here. So that's a net 0 for the wolf. So what he rolls is what he rolls on the -1. He rolls a 65 and he misses. So the second wolf rolls a 59 and he also misses. So that's the end of phase 2. Phase 3. Raffin now has his bastard sword out. When we look at order of combat, we see that the bastard sword is a heavy sword class weapon, so that puts him on the 7 line here. And we see the creatures have a DCV of 6, so they're on the same line. But in case of ties, characters will always attack first. So we know that Raffin is getting to go first in this instance. Back up to our combat table. So Raffin has a bastard sword skill of 6. He's going to use all 6 to subtract from his roll, and he's not using any of that for defensive. I think the original rules said you can either add the 6 or subtract the 6 from your roll, or add the 6 to your opponent's roll. What I've typically done in the past is say you could split that, so you can do -3 to your roll, +2 to your opponent's roll, or whatever. Anyways, for this, we're going to subtract 6. Wolves don't have any shields or anything, so there's nothing modifying his roll from them. His OCV, as I mentioned, was 7. Their DCV is 5, so he's rolling on the +2 line. So subtracting 6 from his roll, he rolls a 42, which is a shield hit, and the wolves don't have a shield, so that's a regular hit. He's doing a d6 +3 damage to the wolf. A total of 4 points. Nothing too exciting there. That's from his bastard sword. Okay, and now the wolves attack again. So the first wolf on the -1 line, sorry, -2 line, with no modifiers. He rolls a 38, and that's a shield hit. He's doing a d6 +1, 7 points. So that actually will damage Raffin's shield by 1. And but Raffin doesn't take any damage. So let's pop over to his character sheet here. His shield has -1 damage. And of course, we can do repairs on that, or he's able to do repairs on that in the future. Go back to our PDF here. And the second wolf, -2 line, Rolls a 70 and misses. Okay, so phase 4. Raffin swings at the first wolf again with -6 to his roll. Through 0. Well, that's a definite miss. Wolf 1 swings or bites back at him, rolls a 12 on the -2 line, so that's a regular hit. So d6 plus 1, 6 points of damage. So that's reduced by 2 because of his armor. So flip back to the Excel here. His armor takes 4 points, and he takes 4 points. This isn't going very well for him, is it? Okay. Phase 1. Raffin attacks. -6 to his roll. And he misses yet again. Wolf 1. 42. The -2 line. That's a shield hit. At 5 points, so no damage to the shield. The other one, 48 on the -2 line. That's a miss. And we're into phase 2. Raffin swings again. Come on, Raffin, you can do better. So 40 with his -6. And the +2 is a hit. And a d6 plus 3, 9 points. All right, so this is going to finish the wolf off. We know that you can only go to -3 for max. And he had 6 points left, so 9 exactly. He had 9 hit points left exactly, so he's dead. We take the first guy off. And the second wolf, the remaining wolf, attacks. And he misses. So we're on to phase 3. Raffin swings, rolls a 10. It's -6. On the +2 line, that's a severe hit. He's going to do a d10 plus 6. So he has a chance of taking down the wolf here. 14 points, not quite. Has a total of 4 hit points left. 1 before he's disabled. Wolf fights back. Misses. Just for the hell of it, Raffin's going to swap from his bastard sword to his fighting dagger. So in this next round, so the wolf will bite at him one more time. He's on the -2 line. No, sorry, -1 line. d6 -7 -1 line. So that's a 34, which is a shield hit. He doesn't damage his shield. And phase 1 of the third combat turn. And he's fighting with his dagger this time. So no minus to his roll. No pluses from the wolf. So it is on the +2 line. So 46 on the +2 line is a shield hit, so that's just a regular hit. And we know we're going to drop the wolf here. So he does a d6 plus 2 points, 3 points of damage with the fighting dagger. And he'll take the dagger to finish off the wolf, so another 1 at the end of that. Right, so what does that mean for illustrious Raffin here? So after combat, there's three sets of gains that that come from this. So combat experience points is going to be based on the. Actually, let me change the view again. So our combat difficulty factor of the wolves is 2. So every point of damage that he's done to these wolves gives him 2 experience points, combat experience points. So we know that there's a total of 30 plus -3 twice. So he's got 36 hit points of damage that he's done here. and a combat difficulty factor of 2, so that's going to give him 72 combat experience points. So he had 450 before. Obviously, I went through a test round of combat here. I've already added it to his combat experience points. For every 50 combat experience points you get round up, you get 1 characteristic point. So the characteristic points can be added to any skills that can be modified that aren't at their max at this point. You can add, I think I'm going to add 1 point to his strength, and I'm going to add 1 point to his stamina. And the nice thing here is, as these go up, it automatically fixes my calculations for me, including the skill max calculations. So if we look at his strength and stamina here, that's going to be 58. Go back to our bastard sword skill. So as soon as he hits 60 total for strength and stamina, he'll be able to go to his EL max for these heavy swords will be 7. So at that point he'll be able to add expertise points to those. So the other thing we get from this is for every point of damage, or sorry, not for every skill that was used in combat, you get 2 times the combat difficulty factor. So he's used his shield skill came into play, so he'll get 4 partial for his, or 4 expertise points for his shield. So that'll be a total of 6 there. As soon as he hits 18, his shield skill goes up 1. His longbow that he used and did 5 points of damage with, he doesn't get anything for, any expertise for, since it's already maxed. Same with his bastard sword. But we did pull out the fighting dagger and deal the last little bit of damage to the wolf with that, so he gets 4 partial in fighting dagger. And that pretty much covers off all the skill gains and gains from combat. We've down to wolves, we've got some combat experience out of it, we've got our skill expertise gains, and our characteristic improvement. So you'll see, there's a lot of moving parts here and a lot of incremental progression that you see on the characters, and for me, that's kind of one of the most interesting, or one of the very interesting parts of the characters, or the rules behind Powers and Perils. The rules books themselves may present it as being fairly convoluted or complicated, and it is quite convoluted. There's a version 2 of the rules that I'd mentioned that was published on the powersandperils.org fan site. That second version of the rules was a community effort along with Richard Snyder, who's the original creator of the game, as far as I'm aware. And that helps clarify some of the rules a bit, but it's still, it is a fairly hefty packet of rules. But once you get familiar with what's going on, it does flow fairly quickly, and it helps if the players kind of understand the rules as well and can help keep track of things for themselves. So anyways, hope this was useful to you. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know. And like I said, the next episode will have the creation of a magic using character. So I'll probably start off with a set of native abilities and go through the applying the multipliers, and I'll be using the same spreadsheet here so I don't have to go through all the calculations again, and dive into the skills and spells acquisition, which is takes a little bit more time, but is relatively straightforward. So anyways, have a great day, guys. Thanks a lot.